This is the second part of our CMU fence. We've got a concrete block fence. It is 6 feet tall and 6 inches wide. We have a footing that is a 1 foot by 2 foot wide footing. Our levels are set up with grade at level 1 and the wall going down underground to the top of the footing at a height of -1 foot, and then the footing itself is 1 foot, taking us to -2. Remembering that these level of details are not something we would do in a real world scenario. We're doing it to make sure we understand three-dimensionally how all the small pieces fit together and how the rebar fits together. So right now we've got a control joint that's 3/8 of an inch here in the middle. Our total wall is 16 feet, but it's not really 16 feet because it would require another joint of cement out on the edge to reach the full 16 feet based on the concrete block module. Our height above grade is 5'10", and we have a 2-inch cap brick running across the top here. We're going to focus mostly on the elevation view, and we're going to focus on creating the 3D view for this assignment. After the wall is built, come to the Structure tab, Reinforcement, find that little arrow, and look at Rebar Cover Settings. So this is going to control the amount of space between the outside face of concrete elements and the rebar inside. In other words, we want to make sure that the rebar doesn't get too close to the exterior face because it can get damaged by moisture. And those cover settings are the distance from the outer face in to describe an internal zone where we are allowed to place our rebar. And those cover settings vary depending on the usage of the piece of concrete. So in this case, it's a footing, and it's going to be constantly in contact with dirt where there's a lot of moisture, or could be a lot of moisture, so we need extra cover there. If it's an exterior column, for example, the cover setting might be reduced. If it's an interior column where we're not expecting any rain coming inside the building, then the cover setting might be further reduced. So we're going to use a distance of 3 inches. And the next thing we'll do is click on rebar to place our rebar, and we'll get this message that says, rebar shape definitions will include hooks and ignore end treatments. That has to do with more detailed things with how rebar connects, or how the end of rebar is bent in beams, for example. So when I click OK, then it says no rebar shape family is loaded into the project. Okay, so we need to load a family. So I'm going to say yes. And it will probably take me to my default content library that's installed on my local computer. I don't believe the rebar shapes are in here. I looked around for them, but I think they're only available online. I'll go over here to Insert, and then we'll find them through the online cloud library. If you type rebar and press enter, and you'll see there's a series of numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then somehow 15 is missing. Then we get to 17, and then there's 17A. And then we get to 25 is missing, and after 26 to 31, there's a bunch missing, but there's a 31A. It's hard to make sense of this. So I'm not really sure why they hide the information or why the interface isn't better. But I've compiled a sort of cheat sheet of all of the rebar shapes and their corresponding number in Revit. So these are different common rebar bend shapes. These are used, for example, in a beam. And this is just a straight piece of rebar here. And this one down here, SP, that I guess might be the only one that makes sense. That stands for a spiral, and that's something we would use inside a round concrete column. We're going to need to load number 0 for the straight bar, and also 17A is just a single bend or an L-shaped bar. We're going to load 0, 0. I should be able to select multiple families here and load them, but I was having trouble loading more than one, so I'm going to load them twice. So I'll load 0, 0 right now and come back in and load 17A. And by the way, you can see what's been loaded. If you come down to the very bottom of your project browser, there is a families folder. You can open that up, scroll down far, find structural rebar, a whole bunch of different families loaded here, and under shape is our 0, 0 and 17A. Coming back to structure and then clicking on rebar, we get that same warning again. Click OK. And over here in the options bar is the location where you can choose the different shapes. So there is a little 3 dots here that will open up the shape browser, so you can visually see which one each one is, which is great when you need to use them, but doesn't really help you when you need to load them. So I've opened up my west elevation, and I'm going to place some rebar running lengthwise or longways in this footing. There's a bunch of different options here that are confusing to me because I don't use them very often. They're a little difficult to understand. Basically, we have to understand, in our mind 3-dimensionally where and how we want to place the rebar. And then we just sort of have to use whichever option up here will get it done for us. It's giving me the don't sign here, so I'm not getting any work. If I switch over to near cover reference, you can see that I all of a sudden get the cover zone. That's the 3-inch offset. And when you see that, that's generally a good sign. So I can click, and if we zoom in, you'll see that I did place one rebar element there. If I go to modify or press escape and select that piece of rebar, you can see its type here is structural rebar 1. And you may recognize these numbers here. That's the size of the rebar, so we need to choose one of those. So looking back at our information bulletin from the city of LA, every reference to rebar on this entire sheet, whether it's going vertically through the wall, horizontally through a bond beam, or horizontally through the footing, is talking about a number 4 rebar. And remember, those numbers are in eighths of an inch. So this number 4 is telling us we need a 1/2-inch diameter piece of rebar. And for the L-shaped 17A, these settings seems to be working. Near cover reference and parallel to work plane. When I come in here, you'll see that I can place it and see the L shape in the side view. So if I press the space bar, get the opportunity to rotate it, I guess that's kind of close enough to what I actually want to do. Then I'm going to have to select it, drag it around, and I don't want to exceed the distance coming down. I'm going to change this to fine so I can see the full thickness. And this should be a number 4 rebar. And I want it to extend all the way to the edge of the cover. And then I can grab this blue dot and pull it up vertically. And it needs to be 24 inches of overlap with the vertical bar that I'm about to place. So if we go to rebar and we start to look at placing the vertical dowel, the 0, 0 shape in the wall, I'm not getting anything there, not getting anything there. Let's try maybe that setting. That's not working. That's not working. What's missing here? If you press modify or escape and then select your wall, slide over here to properties, you'll see it says that it's not currently considered structural. And once you check that box, then you start to see rebar cover settings becoming active. Keep in mind that we'll need to do this for both walls. So you may want to do that in 3D. Select both of them, make sure they're both set for structure. So when I come to my west elevation and I begin to look at placing a new piece of rebar, so I'm setting this at 0, 0. I'm trying to do the vertical dowel that runs through the wall. My settings are near cover reference and parallel to work plane. I'm not getting anything on the wall. But when I come down to the foundation here, I am able to get something, and I can press the space bar to make it vertical. What's happening here? Our block wall is 6 inches wide, remember? And we set our cover distance to 3 inches. So that's 3 inches from the left and 3 inches from the right, but that's the entire distance of our wall. So essentially, there's no possible location where we can place rebar inside our wall. So let's come back to the structure tab and then reinforcement and rebar cover settings. Let's make a new one, and we'll call this 2 inches. So let's select both of these walls, come over to properties, and switch all of them to rebar cover 2, which has the 2-inch distance setting. Now when we go back into the west elevation and we go rebar near cover reference parallel to work plane with the 0, 0 shape, I want to make it a number 4 bar. Should be able to come in here and you'll see that I've got a zone in the middle here that's 2 inches wide because our cover is 2 inches on either side. It's a little bit less than 2 inches because we call it a 6-inch wall, but we know it's a little bit shorter than that. I'm going to place a vertical bar here. So let's select both of these bars and find View Visibility States. And we want to be able to see them in the 3D view and also in the south elevation. We'll click OK. Take a look in the south elevation. When we deselect them, we can see them there. And in the 3D view, we can see them. It looks like one bar is over here in this wall, one bar is over here. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and make these rebars a color that's easier to see. So let's go to the VV settings, scroll down, find structural rebar. We want to change the projection surface color to be a solid fill, and I'm going to pick orange because it'll stand out nicely, and click apply, and that's going to make it easy to see them. And also in the 3D view, I'll do the same. Scroll down and find rebar, structural rebar, patterns, solid fill, make the color orange, click OK. You know, and right now it looks a little strange because they're reading at a full strength, and you can see that like the rebar appears to like be on top of the block pattern. So it looks like the rebar is not in the wall. It looks like the rebar is somehow like floating outside of the wall. But of course, three-dimensionally, it is in the center of the wall, but it isn't quite displaying properly here. So to make it look like it's really floating inside the wall, what we're going to do is select the 3 rebars in this view. And then I'll come back to View Visibility States and uncheck the 3D view. So now we can't see them at all, but we're going to select these 3 objects, right click and override the graphics by element. So not changing all of the walls in this 3D view, just the 3 elements that I have selected, and say I want these to be transparent. So let's try 60. There's an apply there. Maybe should we try 50? How about 50? And so now it's reading as though you can see the pattern coming across the top, and it's kind of like grayed out a little, transparent sort of looking. So it feels like it is representing it a little bit better. So the vertical dowels need to be at least 48 inches on center. So thinking about our side elevation here, we've got a distance of 8 feet. So we could probably put one in the middle and one over here, and that would cover a 4-inch at maximum between each one. Let's go ahead and take this one, and I'm just using my arrow key to move it over. We're going to get that positioned maybe around there. We'll zoom in, and I'm trying to look at the pattern of the cells and get these positioned pretty close to each other and have them centered in what would be the vertical cavity or the void area within the concrete block. And then let's take a look at the west elevation. I'm going to select this piece of rebar, move it up to around here. The idea is that this one is cast into the foundation and it's going to stick up. Then they'll build the wall on top of this one. And then as the wall is being erected, they'll add this second one in and wire it to the existing one. So remember, we need a 24-inch amount of overlap here. So we could place a dimension going from here to the top of that rebar. See what that turns out to be. Already I'm over. So I guess we could drag this down a bit. I guess we could try to make it exactly 2 feet. Yeah, why not? So I'm going to take this piece of rebar and scoot it over a little bit, place this one here. I also have them in the south elevation so they're like not overlapping with each other. If we looked at it, I guess, in a plan view, you'd see they're kind of diagonal with each other. If you can see that one there and that one there, they're kind of diagonal to each other. And so that's this side of the wall over here. We're also going to need the bond beams, which you can see there's one here at mid-height, and then there's one at the top. There's the other one there. So I can take this view here of the west elevation and select that rebar, and I'm going to copy it up and copy it up again. Then we'll take a look at these in the south elevation. And notice in the information bulletin, it doesn't tell us the height of where this needs to be located. It tells us here, okay, it needs to be mid-height, typical, but they're not going to give us a numerical dimension because it has to fit in the block and in the block module. The same thing is happening up here, right? This one looks like it's very close to the top. That's possible if we don't have a capstone, but in our design, we do have a capstone. So for us, this long ways horizontal rebar is going to end up a little bit lower. But let's take a look at the top or the height of this last piece of rebar. Probably going to go somewhere around there. And remembering the way that a bond beam works, looking at the block, there's that small cutout here, and it only goes down just about 2 inches. So this horizontal rebar is going to be running in the upper area of the course. So I'm going to take this rebar and just use my arrow key to move it up to about that location. And then this one here, same thing, but I'm going to move it up another block because it's supposed to be about midway or halfway up. These need to be a maximum of 4 feet apart. My total wall is about 8 feet long. So if I put one in the middle and I locate one here, then I'll have them spaced out less than 4 feet, and that'll meet the requirements. I'm thinking that I'm going to select this one, and I will copy them over to about there. Try to get them located in the middle of where the block void would be. And then looking at the middle, I want to aim for one of the voids in the concrete block. So I could put it there. I could put it there. This one feels like it's a little bit more equally spaced. And I guess if we really wanted to, we could come in and, put dimensions on these just to prove that they are less than 4 feet. I'm not going to leave those dimensions on, just putting them there so I can convince myself that I've done the right thing. And at this point, I can copy all of these over to the next wall. And I think we're getting pretty close. Let's make sure we deal with this idea of the alternate bends in the foundation. So three-dimensionally, this one is going to come and bend forward towards me. But this one is going to need to come and bend the opposite direction. Then this one will come towards me. And probably this one will bend the opposite direction. This one will come towards me. And this one will bend the opposite direction. So I'm going to take 1, 2, three of them and mirror them. Select these in this 3D view and then come back to my west elevation and find my mirror tool. Make sure that my copy is not on. I'm going to mirror them coming straight up from the midpoint. That'll be my mirror axis, and that should flip them over, and it looks like that has worked correctly. Got them facing the opposite direction. I'm going to double click on this height dimension and add in this below area max 6 foot dash 0 inches. Whoops, there we go. I'm going to add another dimension that goes to here like that. We'll call this a 2-inch capstone. So I'm double clicking and adding the word cap here in the suffix. So let's try to get some of these notes that are communicated here to appear on our south elevation. I can see all my rebar. I'm going to go ahead and add some text and labels. So some text here. We'll say number 4 horizontal at top and TYP. When I select this, I want to have an arrow coming off to the side here. Let's put that running here. Maybe we'll move this down a little bit and we'll bend it straight like that. I'll pull this over some and maybe something like that. Make this a little bit longer so I've only got 2 rows of text, and I'm going to continue that pattern coming down, so that's why I'm spending some time trying to get it exactly the way I want it. I'll take this and copy it. I'm going to need 3 more text blocks. This one here, I'm going to have it point at the ground level. Call this one finish grade. And this next one, I'm going to point at the middle rebar. So instead of at top, this will say at mid height. I'll stretch that out a little bit so it's only 2 lines. This one will point to the number 1 vertical at 48 inch on center, and that is a minimum. Okay, this one needs to point there. This one needs to point there. Maybe move that down a little and bend it like that. I guess if we want to be really specific to this information bulletin, maybe we should rewrite this exact text in our file. So I'll go ahead and bend to the will of the city, and let's do it. So horizontal joint reinforcement of 1 number 4 horizontal atoll mid height. That's definitely a typo, so we won't do that one. And need to find a way to squeeze all this in here. So maybe I'll just arrow key this up a little bit, arrow key this one up, and then I'll take this arrow and bend it there. Finish grade. I'd like to show the ground in a similar hatch pattern like what is showing up here. And you can see there's the ground line also. So maybe I'll take these and scoot them out just a bit. And then we'll go ahead and create a hatching area as well as a thicker line running across showing where the finished grade is. And let's get to work on our hatch. So annotate, and of course in Revit hatches are called regions. So I will go for the green pick line tool here because that's giving me the ability to pick up a lot of these edges, and I'll use it as much as I can, and then maybe fillet there to there, and then I can pick line on this again, and then fillet there to there. Grab this one, stretch it back a bit, and then I'm going to manually draw down a certain distance because obviously the earth goes down forever. And I'm just going to approximate maybe about another foot of distance. I'm going to pull this in just a bit so I can see the level lines extending past. I don't need to draw the ground line also. I've got a perfectly good line that I could use here as well as this one. So I'm selecting both of those, and I'm going to make them this wide line pattern. And this is within the region, within the hatching, right? And then these, I actually don't want to see any boundary because I don't want this line obscuring the line weight of what's underneath of it. And I don't really want these lines to appear either. It's pretty common convention to not have a bottom kind of wrapping edge line there. So I'm going to select all of those lines and make them the invisible type, which you'll find right there. And then green check mark, and you can see my hatching is working just the way I wanted. I just need to make the adjustment to the pattern. And the pattern should be the earth pattern, which we don't find here. So selecting it, I will go to edit type and duplicate, and we'll call this earth. Earth, come on, there we go, earth. And the hatch pattern, I will find right here the tiny 3 dots. Once you click in this box, you'll see the dots appear. Then you can go down and find earth, and we'll click OK. And there, things are looking better. Our wide line here doesn't appear wide because we are in the thin line mode, but you can see once we click this button up here, then it shows a heavier line running across there. I think I'm doing pretty good. There's one important thing that I wasn't quite thinking through and didn't quite realize, and that's that our rebar is running continuous across our control joint, and that's not something that happens realistically, right? So our footing is one continuous piece running all the way across, and I made this rebar as my very first one. Then I copied it up to here and copied it up to here and said, oh, everything's great, this is all going well. We definitely cannot have rebar passing through and being exposed and then continuing like that, right? So these two pieces of rebar need to be shortened to about that location, maybe a little bit shorter, because remember there's a thickness of the concrete block itself right here. And so I'll do the same thing to this one, and then I'll need to select both of these, copy them across to a location here. Maybe these can go a little bit more, a couple arrow keys to the right, something like that. All right. We're in very good shape. I am missing just one label, which is I don't have a label talking about these vertical dowels. So let's see if I can squeeze that in here somehow. I'll take this one, copy it down maybe to about there. Actually, I'm gonna arrow key it down a little bit just so I get it off these level lines. Take this and bend it up to this one here. Change this text to number 4, vertical dowels at 48 inches on center with alternate bends in foundation. I'm using the text directly from here. We did not make one of these, but I guess probably we should, right? There's no label pointing directly to this piece of rebar. We were referencing this one that points to these, but it's the same for all the designs. So I should probably add one there because the word continuous is maybe a little different from some of the wording on some of these. Okay, let's see if we can stretch this out a bit to get that to fit into 3 rows of text. And where will we squeeze this other one? I guess we can just arrow key this up a little bit, try to squeeze it all in here. Actually, this one needs the arrow key down. Point that probably there, and then I will copy this one up. And we'll see if we can get it to point at that, and we will label it number 4, longitudinal continuous. Okay, 1 dash number 4 longitudinal continuous. There we go. We are very rebar professional now. I'm gonna actually, I think, arrow key all of these up a little bit just so my document looks clean and there's like even spacing between all of these. And I've got everything pointing in the right spot. We've got this one down here. You can see the invisible lines of the hatch are obscuring the lines of the foundation. So I'm going to select the hatch and then I'll do send to back. And a little bit hard to see, but if you zoom in, those lines are visible. Sometimes you zoom out, they're not quite as visible. Oh, they're looking visible there. Looking back at the information bulletin, it's important that you read through all of these conditions, but especially we're interested in number 6 here. It says concrete block units to have vertical continuity of cells unobstructed. That means the voids that are running vertically need to be all lined up with each other, nothing blocking. That way the grout will be able to penetrate all the way through and make a solid singular column of cured grout or pseudo concrete. It says all cells containing reinforcing shall be solid grouted, both vertically and horizontally. And then it says cells not containing reinforcing shall not be grouted. So we're going to indicate that graphically here on our elevation by creating a hatch or a region in Revit. So we'll go to annotate region, and then I'll do my best to draw this out. We're going to have, maybe I should pick line that one. So pick line the ends. The top of it will be ending here at the foundation line. And then maybe I'll, can I pick line the horizontal joints? Yes. Okay, well, the grouting, of course, is not going to span across the 2 separate walls. So we'll do one wall at a time, and then maybe we can copy the wall on the left to the wall on the right. So let's see if I can pick line this bottom horizontal joint here. Am I able to get the bottom? There. That's working well. And let's do the top of that one. Let's do the top of this one, the bottom of that one. And then we need to do this edge here, that edge, and that edge. So essentially I need the grout only where the vertical and horizontal cells have rebar. And so that's going to be running across like this and down like this, across like this, and down these 2 cells. So I get this kind of a grid pattern. So I've picked those lines, and so my choice is to split the element. There's 2 split tools here. I want to use the split, not the split with gap. So I'll click this. That allows me to break each of these somewhere in the middle here. And I'm also going to need to split these two horizontals right there in the middle. Come back with my corner tool, make all of my corners. And that's definitely faster than going and picking the lines again. And corner tooling up here. Oh, I need to split that one. Let's go back. And I'll need to do that at the bottom also. So split this one here and split this one actually here and here. And so corner like that. And this one goes corner like this. And that, and that, and there. And one more right there. Okay, and then green check mark. And oh, I've got a little overlap happening there. So, you know, I have to have a clean corner. And fortunately, it gives us, it changes the color of the problem area to yellow. So I can fix that. I just missed one little corner right there. Green check mark. And of course, I missed another corner right here. Okay, finally, I think we're good. Okay, so there's our hatch pattern. I'm not sure what the appropriate hatch pattern is because we typically don't really draw grout like in elevation like this. We could use a concrete style. We could also use this diagonal cross hatch because this pattern is used in floor plans when we're talking about concrete block. I think either one will be fine, but you can see the problem is happening here is that the hatch is actually like blocking out everything behind it. So let's select that and we'll go to edit type and I'm going to duplicate this one and call it diagonal crosshatch, what do we call it? See-through or maybe transparent. How about that? And I need to uncheck this masking box and click OK, and now you can see that we're able to see all the way through it. I'm hoping that this hatch will work exactly on the right side. So how should we do it? Should we try to copy it or should we mirror it? Well, let's just copy it straight up and we'll go corner, snapping to that corner, snapping to this corner. I always end up clicking and making an extra one by accident. Make sure I put that guy down there where he belongs. Going back to our 3D view, this doesn't look so good when our lines are not in the thin mode. So this one reads well on the screen in the thick line mode or the display as it will print mode. When we're looking at 3D, we'd want to turn on our thin lines. And I think if we switch this one up to shaded, then we'll get that grayish color and it'll probably look a little bit cooler, look a little bit more translucent, so it makes the rebar read like it's actually inside.